Hello, everyone. Welcome all to our Customer Insights webinar session. First, I'd like to check that are you hearing me well? You can use the chat to send your message, comments, and if the audio is okay. I got yes. Awesome, thank you. Thanks a lot. So everyone seems to hear me. That is a good start. Also, to let you know, this webinar, like the previous ones, will be recorded and we will share the link to the recording after the session, and we will post it also to our YouTube channel. So in case you want to watch it again or share it to your colleagues, you will receive the link later after the session. My name is Riina. I'm your host today. I'm the product marketing manager at Solibri and running these monthly webinars. Nice to meet you all. Today, we have on our agenda case Skanska, improving BIM quality through collaboration. And Valentin Velinov from Skanska Finland is our presenter, and he will also show a demo on Solibri. We will hear his views on BIM quality and how a high quality model can be utilized throughout different phases of a project, and how the process can be streamlined and things like that. In the end, we will also have some time for your questions. You can send your questions at any point during the presentation to the chat. It would be great if you can mention who your question is for. It makes it easier for us to answer the questions. So if it's for Valentin or if it's for us at Solibri, we also have Lauri Luoma, our customer success manager, online. He's going to help out if you have any questions for Solibri. And before we get to the actual presentation, I have a quick poll I would like to run. This time we'd like to ask you about checking BIM quality. So I will give you a few minutes to reply. How do you check the quality of your BIM models? You have the options on your screen, and I'm seeing that there are replies coming in. Let's wait a couple of minutes more. There are still votes coming in, so I'm gonna wait for a little while longer. Yeah, so I guess most of you have now casted your vote, so I'm gonna close the poll now. And here's how it looks. So over half of you answered that with all the options above. So you are doing different types of checking. But there are also a few that replied that we don't do quality assurance for BIM models. So that's also very interesting to hear. Thank you all for your replies. And next we can actually get to the presentation. So welcome, Valentin. I will share the screen now for you so you can start your presentation. Thank you for being our presenter today.
Thank you, Irina. I hope you can hear me well and see my presentation. First of all, I'm really glad to be here as a speaker today. So thank you, Solibri, for inviting me to be a panelist in your Customer Insights webinar series. I hope I'll be able to bring some insights of how we actually do BIM quality assurance and Skanska, and why we see that collaboration with designers is a really important part of the equation. Just to mention a few words about Solibri in the beginning, we have been using Solibri for, I'll say, decades here in Skanska Finland, and we have a really tight collaboration with them. And I'd like to thank them for helping us out build our new rule set that we launched, which I'll be presenting later in a demo. But we have been working really tight with Solibri to basically build our tool set for quality assurance. A few words about myself here in the beginning. My name is Valentin Velinov, and I currently work as a development manager in the BIM and Digital Services unit in Skanska Finland. And about my background, I graduated from Aalto University, and my master's topic was revolving a lot around construction management and economics, but I also have another degree in building materials and physics. And after graduation, I worked for a medium-sized construction company here in Finland as a business developer. I'll say BIM wasn't my major focus area, so it was more around developing and streamlining processes and also managing vast IT projects. But I joined Skanska as a development engineer in 2017 in this same current team. And basically, my role of responsibility was serving as a BIM specialist for assigned projects here in southern Finland. So I was helping the projects follow through our BIM process, but also gave them support revolving around digitalization. I have been collaborating a lot with startups, so business development was a big part of that role as well. So we're always looking for the newest innovations in the field. It can revolve around visualization or actually implementing new features into the BIM process, or actually utilizing the models more efficiently, for example, at sites. So always eager to hear what startups are thinking about the newest iterations. And I was promoted to the current position in 2019, and nowadays I'm not so much at the field, so I'm not a BIM specialist anymore. I'm more of a development person looking after our process, or developing it, but also looking at different tool sets. So how can we do things more efficiently from an operational standpoint? And maybe as a side note, digital services in my case means smart buildings. So basically, we're developing different types of service portfolios for our business clients, and most of them actually revolve around BIM. This is why the quality, which is the BIM quality, is really important, because we can derive different kinds of services and platforms if the quality is good.
Valentin, I'm sorry to interrupt you for a second. It seems that the presentation is like the screen is cutting off more than when we tested it out. So I don't know if you can try to restart the presentation mode in PowerPoint or something to kind of make it.
What if I keep it in this mode? Can you see it better?
At least it shows the entire slide, so in that sense it is better. Yes.
Okay.
Let's see what the audience says. That's better. That is better. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
if
we'll
that's
have to go.
Okay for you, then yeah. Sorry for this. I don't know why it stopped working now, but sometimes these technical things happen, even how much we test things out before the sessions. So
yes, well, this will have an effect on my animation. So well, I'll try to highlight things with my cursor in this case. But if we continue, I'd like to say a few words about Skanska as well. And well, here you can see a mirage of my employees here, my colleagues here at Skanska Finland. For those who don't know Skanska, Skanska is a world leader in construction and project development on select markets in the Nordic region, Europe, and the USA. And driven by the group's values, Skanska wants to contribute to a better society. Skanska provides innovative, sustainable solutions for both simple and complex assignments. And looking at our key metrics from last year, Skanska has about 35,000 employees worldwide. And in 2019, our revenue totaled at around 16.7 billion euros. And here at Skanska Finland, we employed 2,179 people at the end of the year 2019. And we basically have operations all around Finland in the major and biggest cities. The only exclusion is northern Finland / Lapland. And if we go through our services and business streams, well, there's construction in itself, and basically it consists of building construction, civil construction, installation, and we also have a machinery unit. But we also have operations in project development, so residential development and as well as commercial development. And if you actually have a glimpse at this photo here under construction, this is actually the Olympic Stadium project. So a fun fact, the Summer Olympics of 1952 were actually held at this arena, and we actually won a renovation project of the year 2018 award on this project. We were serving as a general contract in this project. A little about the background. So why we see BIM quality is important to us. First of all, the information content of a model cannot be utilized to its full potential in our projects. This is just the harsh truth. And what this actually means is the quality is partly inadequate. Hence, the right information is not extractable at the right time in the design phase, but also in different functions, which I will go through later. BIM quality in itself is quite a broad term, so I'll have to define it later, but I see that basically the content and the information validity at a certain point is crucial. And this is why I can make this bold statement. And we have realized that we as Skanska cannot, it's not up to us. We have to basically, it's a team effort. In order to achieve it, we have to go for mutual efforts with our partners and basically develop this aspect and make a positive change. And this is why, if you look at our core values, be better together, I actually see that this applies to basically this point of view really well, because I see the designers are in a really key role if we want to improve BIM quality throughout projects. Just to put my presentation into context, I would like to tell a little about the roles and responsibilities in residential development projects here in Finland. So if we start from the upper left corners, designers are actually responsible and required to design, to basically build up a model. And they're responsible for their own BIM and also the quality assurance of this BIM. If we think from a collaboration standpoint, well, quote unquote, we call them chief designers, but basically it means the architect is the chief of the collaboration process. So he basically coordinates the modeling follow through and clash correction with the other design fields. And he's also responsible for compiling the combined model, which is later submitted for our use. So if we think from a Skanska standpoint, BIM specialists, their role is basically just to quality assure the model at a current set point. And we have developed our own quality assurance method, but also the tool set in itself. This is for a Skanska project. There's also like BIM coordinators in some projects, and especially in the commercial side. The BIM coordinator is basically working as a BIM specialist, but also he can be a helping hand to the architect, as we see it. So he can take some of the tasks which are assigned to the chief designer and look that they and coordinate them. The developer in itself just sets the objectives and BIM checkpoints into the planning schedule from our side. I think around the world there are different kinds of ways to organize around the project. This is why I thought it is important to present it to you how we organize. So later when we jump into the BIM process, you can actually see why we're trying to make a change and how it will actually implement the organizational side of it. In our residential and commercial development, the rate of modeling is, I'll say, almost 100%. There are just some minor places in northern Finland where some design fields aren't modeled. This means all design fields are required to model, and also the utilization of models, even on our basic construction sites, is really high. Our site managers and supervisors are digitally skilled, and they will utilize the model to their benefits if one is available. One of the key issues, though, in building information modeling is the quality of the model. Can you really utilize the design, use it, for example, quantity takeoffs on site, and actually trust the information? And trust is really important because you won't do anything with quantity takeoffs if you don't trust the input data. Here is actually a visualization of two BIM models. And I have a question for you. Can you say which one of these is a high quality model and which one is not? You're probably the same opinion with me. The surface usually tells nothing, and not even in this case. If we jump to a second case, here you can see a 3D model, and all of the measurements and geometry of the components are correct. But we can assume that that's only it. There is no material information, no structure types, no classifications, not even specific properties for building components. I guess quantity takeoffs are out of the equation in this case as well. So what about the picture on the right? So what we actually want is a building information model. And I emphasize the word information, as the content and how it is structured is critical. By getting the information right, some say we have a high quality model, as every component is defined, its position data is structured, for example, for apartments specifically, and all needed property fields are filled and correct. Furthermore, the model is created systematically according to Skanska's requirements. Well, in my opinion, I'm afraid to say I'll have to state that this is not surely a high quality model, as a critical factor is still missing, which is time. And I basically see BIM as a process, not an end product. And this standpoint actually has a big effect on how we compose a high quality model. And basically to elaborate this statement, here is how we define BIM quality. And if you look at academical work, you won't find a definition of what is a high quality BIM model or what is BIM quality in itself. And this is why my colleague Emma Mäkinen actually did her master thesis around this topic. And the end input was this kind of simple equation. So validity of the data plus the information content in itself, is it existing or not, plus when that information is accumulated, equals BIM quality. And if we go into the quote unquote, a model can be said to be of high quality when the model is valid, up to date, and consistent with the right information at the right time during the project. In other words, the model has met its goals and objectives at set points during the life cycle of a project. Is, in my opinion, a really great statement and a way to define what is BIM quality. What this actually means, if we jump into the next point, this is still from the masterpiece, is I'm sorry all the data is now visualized to you. Please don't be scared. I'll try to basically go through it without the animations. But if we look on the downside, lower row, design management, how can we utilize BIM models there? They can be used for basically getting a perception of the project. We use the BIM models for marketing purposes as well. We can do different kinds of reviews based on the BIM model and also feasibility analysis. If we, for example, take a standpoint of how is it actually manageable to build a certain thing based on the design plans. And the benefits, if a high quality model is able to be used in the design management, means we have a visual approach to the design. It supports the design management process in itself. So basically everybody is looking at the same part, and we use BIM as the collaboration tool, not the 2D plans. Also, we are somewhat able to acquire higher quality plans. If we think about printing out documentation out of the BIM model. And it promotes, in my eyes, open cooperation with all the stakeholders. From a quantity and cost estimation standpoint, it can be utilized in getting a perception of what kind of materials what kind of materials will be used in the project, but also if the information content is at a high level, we can use it for quantity takeoffs and let's say at a certain level also automate that process. So we don't have to calculate the quantities out of the 2D plans. If any alterations are made, recalculation is quite easy, and we can also do grouping based on the models. And the biggest benefits we see is it enhances and streamlines calculation, as I defined earlier. It gives a better perception of the entirety to the person who is actually doing the calculation and estimations. And I'll say it also improves accuracy. It's more based on the data which is input into the model and not extracted from 2D plans. From a procurement standpoint, BIM models are utilized in evaluating special solutions, something which is basically out of the ordinary of how things are done, and getting an impact of what it means from a procurement standpoint. They're also able to do these quantity checks and basically compare if what they are procuring, actually, the quantity of the procurement is actually right. And at just some certain stage, we can also utilize that data for calls of tender. And we see the same benefits basically as in estimation. So it enhances and streamlines procurement. It gives a better understanding of the procurement packages and also improves accuracy. And last but not least, as we utilize BIM models at the site, from a production standpoint, there we go. From a production standpoint, we use it in quantity calculation and verification on site. And also they do somewhat also procurement, so they can base the data, the quantity takes off on their material orders, and use the models to plan working and actually manage working to some stage, if we see the BIM as a project management tool. And maybe the latest iteration is takt timing. So how can we actually utilize the model in takt time planning, and what kind of needs and necessities it brings to the design phase? For example, if we're thinking about the, modeling spaces, because takt time blocks is different than the traditional production blocks. And the major benefits, I'll say, are, well, it benefits functions in production just because it streamlines them and it brings the data, it's accessible and easy to view even on site, and it saves a lot of time and cost when you actually have to figure out and extract some of the data out of the BIM model. And I'll also say it improves the quality and reduces errors which happen. So if we have a high quality model, that usually is the design, and they utilize the model to actually design the production phase and check that things are installed as they are planned. So what is quality assurance of BIM? And I'm talking about the process. We joke that this is basically a holy trinity from our standpoint. So if we start from the upper side, we have Skanska-based guides and requirements to designers. For example, it can be a BIM guide or a data content table of what kind of data level should be reached at certain checkpoints. But we are not basically designing any own requirements. Our guideline is the Yleiset tietomallivaatimukset 2020 document, which is basically composed by Building Smart Finland, and it sets the general modeling guidelines for the whole construction field or industry here in Finland. And we, as part of Building Smart, comply with these rules, and we are not inventing anything out of that forum. We also have these design contracts where we specify what kind of level of detail should be acquired at different stages of the design phase. And we elaborate to all key partners what are their roles and responsibilities, because they can change based on the project. And this is why it was the one I presented you earlier. It's the general way we actually organize ourselves. But I know we have, in some projects, it's better to actually take different kinds of roles ourselves as well, just to see that the objectives are met. If we go to the quality assurance toolset bubble, basically this means Solibri. So Solibri is our number one quality assurance software, and we have developed our own rule set around it. We think it as a rule engine, and that's why some things they're really easy to check for a rule set, but let's say some things should be left to visual inspection. And that's why we have actually just gathered a checkpoint list of what things should be checked visually out of the model. And if we want to filter through information content, the best way is to use information takeoffs. So we have developed our own templates, and that is because we want to basically assure that the one who's doing the quality check is actually looking at the right data and using the right data fields. Then if we go to the left, quality measurement and control, we have developed and launched the self-delivery process. I'll walk through it later on, but basically it means that we're somewhat trying to, how do you say, activate our designers to quality assure their models themselves. This is why we have been bringing our own tools to their use as well, and actually gathering data through their self-delivery process at different stages. This is really important if you think about quality control. We're basically extracting the data they submit and we evaluate, and we're able to, we have been able to develop this real-time report, which is basically data visualization. And based on that data, we're also able to design different kinds of dashboards for different stakeholders. If I jump into the process itself, so how do we ensure the quality of the models? This is actually a simplified illustration of our BIM process during the design phase. As BIM specialists, we support the project in implementing the process and guide that modeling progress as scheduled, and models match up to the quality we expect at every single milestone. The modeling process is commenced by arranging a kickoff modeling meeting in the beginning of the project, where we walk the designers of different design fields through our BIM process and operating model. So we specify the modeling schedule, walk them through their responsibilities, and also present our guidance documents and quality assurance tools. The aim is to ensure that designers focus on the right scope at every checkpoint of the design phase and are able to submit us a flawless model. So if we look at the different checkpoint tasks here below, we have these self-delivery tasks at critical checkpoints, which in our case is like a 5-step process. And we require them to basically deliver their input at this stage at the same time they're actually like submitting their models. And we as Skanska evaluate their self-delivery. So we quality assure the model and also look what they have answered to our questionnaire and give our own evaluation. Do we see the model quality as the designer sees it? And what are basically its benefits at that current moment, or what it lacks? So we can basically red flag it if we see that the information content is somewhat invalid and shouldn't be used, for example, in the estimation phase. And as you can see, we're gathering data almost in every critical step, and there's a lot of data which is accumulated during the design phase and the project. If we jump into a certain checkpoint, what does it actually mean? At the current stage, we're, for example, now in the combined model phase. And if we start with the designer, of course, first he'll plan and model the building. And actually, before he submits it, he'll do his own internal check and review his model, after which he'll basically fill out our questionnaire and submit the IFC to the project bank. And what happens after this is, well, Skanska will go get the model, do its own quality check based on our rule sets and visual inspection, and do some clash checking. And basically all the errors we find will make into issues and assign them to the designer they belong to, and make a presentation. So we'll basically give them a report of what things need to be fixed. And at this point, we also evaluate the self-delivery. So if the architect has basically, in this example, said that everything is fine, but we see there's a lot of errors, and for example, the geometry has a lot of clashes, we'll evaluate it that from our standpoint, it's not fine. So this is basically just an input for the project manager to have a discussion, like, why do you see that it fills our terms and the set objectives of the project? Once the issues are basically fixed, the architect usually submits a second version, a revision of the model. And we, at this current time, we actually go through the issue report and the revised model and see if the issues are fixed, and evaluate the model once again. So we have actually two evaluations. One is from the initial submission, the second one is of the revision. So are the issues fixed, and is the model now applicable to different functions? If you ask me from my standpoint, that is quite a, let's say, it's a really tough process. So it involves, every step is actually quite time consuming. So if you saw that basically at the checkpoint, the walkthrough of that process is 2 weeks, I see we can streamline it using just simple lean principles in this case. And this is basically a visualization of how I see it. So the initial process is basically the same. So of course the designer plans and models the model, but now that we have launched our own quality assurance tools via Solibri, the designer can actually utilize our tool set and do the quality check and model review himself, which basically should lift the quality of the model in this initial phase already. And well, sometimes the quality can be achieved because, well, he's lacking some decisions, or there may be some time restrictions. And this is why the self-delivery questionnaire is really important, because if something is still quote unquote undesigned, he can basically make a statement in the self-delivery that I wasn't able to model this, but this will happen, hence I get the information, or something like that. So we can expect that the model is high quality to the certain point he can achieve. And basically he just reports if something is lacking and why he can't achieve a high quality in certain parts. And once he has exported and submitted the model to us, I see that Skanska in itself should just inspect the model, see if the self-delivery actually, the view of the designer actually meets the view of us. And that's it. We should expect from a lean standpoint that the model is already correct and to its highest capability at this point, and the rest of the process won't be needed. So we'll leave out this validation phase, as we see that it won't be necessary. And from a time schedule standpoint, this means that we can basically push a single checkpoint quality assurance down to 3 days from 2 weeks. And it's a win-win scenario how we see it, because with this revision process we do nowadays, the designer always has to come back to the model and fix it. But if he can fix it and model it at a high quality already in the beginning, then he won't need to come and revise it, and he'll save time as well. We see that basically both parties would get out of the benefits out of this if we just give our quality assurance tools to the designers and develop them in collaboration. So we will be gathering input from our designers and basically doing development stints to our rule sets and information takeoffs based on their views. And if we think about the quality measurement and control, I won't go into details on this side, but basically the self-delivery in our case means it's a Microsoft Forms document which the designer fills, and every design field has its own questionnaire. And the questionnaire is basically based on our table content. So depending on which checkpoint we are in our BIM process, the questions are different. So they fill out a different questionnaire at every checkpoint, and we extract the data out of these forms questionnaires into a database and visualize the data via Power BI. And we're now currently working on different dashboards. So for example, the project manager he probably needs just a really simplified view of what is the BIM quality in his own project at a current standpoint. So he won't need all the basic data and different answers to these specific questions. He would want the data presented as a whole. But we're able to also pull out data of how different designers perform, company-based. So actually the data we compile is, our designers see that it's actually a really good view for them as well. And this is why we have had discussions that at some point we'll give their own data to them, as it basically serves as input for their own development, how they have performed in projects. Thank you. This was my presentation, and I'll actually now switch screens and jump onto the demo. Riina, can you confirm that you see the whole screen?
Yes, at least I can.
Perfect. So if we start in the beginning, I'll actually jump into the file. So as I said, we have actually launched our own extension into Solution Center, and that is the way we actually distribute our tools to the designers. And in this case, I have, well, downloaded and installed it myself. This is basically nothing new to Skanska. This is how we actually develop our own internal tools and deploy them to our employees. So now it is just an external version of the same thing. And now if we go into roles, once I have downloaded and installed it, I'll just open the role from here. And it brings these tool sets along with it. So we have the rule set in itself. I'll walk through it. It's quite a big, let's say quite a big package. We have some classifications. So our rule set is, I'll say it's built quite smart and it's easy to maintain. That's why some of the parts are brought under classification. So this classification just basically supplements it. But we have classification, for example, for casting parts, if the structural engineer wants to walk through them really fast and see what kind of parts it includes. And also we utilize these Construction 2000 classification code here in Skanska, and that's how we basically filter the components based on this classification code. And this is a way the architect can check quickly that basically the data input is put correct and the objects are classified. And there are also information takeoffs for both the architect and the structural engineer at this certain standpoint. So the HVAC and electrical design fields aren't tackled. If we jump into the model itself, once I have activated the role, it basically brings the tool sets straight away. And we'll be looking today at a project here in Finland, Tampere. It's called Luminary, and it actually won a recognition and award in itself in 2018 from Tekla BIM Award. So this is quite a high quality model in itself. And I thought I'll show you these different tools and actually how they work. I apologize that they are in Finnish, as well our working language is Finnish, but I have set the Solibri into English, so the rule sets, for example, are translated automatically. But if we go for the classifications, you can basically see that now all these building components are to some degree classified via the standard. So for example, if we take the doors and click a certain door, you can actually see that yes, this is a room door and it's classified to the right place. And if you look into the parameters, what key fields we're using, let's see if I can open it. This usually takes a little, there we go. Here are the classification rules. So basically, depending on with which tool the component is designed and which data field we're using, we assign it to a certain classification field. And as you can see, there are many ways to insert a certain object to this classification. That's why we have to tackle every single case scenario on its own role. I won't walk through this because this is quite a big document, but this is how it basically works under the hood. And our objective is that there will actually be, there won't be any unclassified building objects. And well, in this case, we'll see a few, and truth be told, all of them actually aren't able to be classified by that standard, which is fine. The major ones I can see are basically included, which in my case, I see this as quite a good model. There are some certain windows and doors which are unincluded. So basically the information content doesn't, well, it's a little inadequate. that is how that classification works. And then, as I told you, we also have this classification, which basically just supports our rule set. If we jump to the rule set in itself, basically this is the rule set we utilize at the end stage of the design phase. So basically what we look through these tools is the site model. And that this means that the model has to be at its highest quality based on our requirements. And the design tool, it basically works for every single design field, and you can also check the combined model with them as well. Now that in this case, I only have the architectural model inside, it is dynamic. So if we, for example, want to go through the rule set structural versus architectural models, well, there won't be any results as I don't have the structural models inside. So I'm able now to just observe the rules that are associated with the architectural model. And well, the biggest part of this improvement is that we actually optimize them. So we have a data content table where we have to a really high level detailed how different components and data should be structured at a certain point of time. And we have seen that Excel, well, it's quite humongous. It has a lot of sheets and rows, and it's really difficult. It doesn't serve a checklist purpose because it's really difficult to check that everything complies. So what we actually did is we basically took the table content and made them into rules. So we have optimized these rules a lot and basically brought different kind of parameters and checked that the tolerance levels are adequate. So we don't want that there's a lot of issues which are irrelevant. So basically our objective is that the rule set just tackles those clashes which are actually an error. And I won't say that it's 100% sure because it's really, really hard to fine tune so that there won't be any false flags, but also that we don't miss any errors. So we have now found a sweet spot which we're testing, but we're constantly optimizing them and seeking that there won't be a lot of irrelevant issues that pop out of this. And well, from an architectural standpoint, you can just check that basically the relations are okay. Then you can do an internal clash check and see that, for example, components in themselves don't clash. Here, for example, I think there is, if I hide this, yeah, there's double windows. So basically this error is that there is double components concerning this window/door. So the duplicate must be removed. And for the architect also, spaces and how spaces are designed is really critical. So we have developed our own tool sets for that, as we have, especially in our residential projects, specified how spaces should be defined so that we can utilize them efficiently. This is the rule set in itself, and if I jump over to the information takeoff, I can do a quick scan of basically what data we can input. Now that I have the architectural model, I'll take just the top floors and actually do a scan. So now I'll, for example, check that the architect has input the data content right. And in this case, it means that, for example, the type and name fields should match so that we can utilize them in, for example, estimation. And we also are checking that it actually belongs to the construction 2000 classification side. And we have also brought this component type, which means which modeling tool he has been used, because it's important that some of the walls are, for example, modeled with this wall tool. Because if they're done with, for example, slab, our quantity estimation, it brings problems to the quantity estimation as they have defined their workflow using these kind of content component type. Here you can basically just scroll through and check quickly that everything matches up to our requirements. And the same can be done, for example, to spaces, which is the other information takeoff tool we brought to our designers. So if we go through that, let's put the spaces on. There we go. So here you can quickly see that every space is classified to a certain apartment type, and in the number field, it is linked to the apartment number. And we can also quickly check that the spaces are actually modeled to the requirements we have, which basically in this case is the height, how high the space should be. And every single space has its unique classification. This is actually quite important in the future as well. If we start linking data back to spaces, or for example, to apartment, and then rich BIM models. But this is a quick walkthrough for our tools. And I'd like to open the floor to questions. So Riina, would you take it on from here?
Yeah. So you can send your questions to the chat and we'll start going them through. I think there already was a couple of questions that came during your presentation. Valentin, I will now start looking these through together with you. Are you, Valentin, able to see the questions on your end?
Yes. I'll just enlarge this GoWebinar screen so I can actually read them as well. So there's a question of what is the name of this document? Wait, am I seeing this correctly?
Yeah, I think it's like there are a couple of questions before that. So there was a question that where can we find the BIM guidelines for construction in Finland, and what is the name of this document?
Oh, well, you can find the BIM guidelines for construction in Finland. I'll actually post you a link because we'll actually answer some of the questions later on. So I can actually give a link to the original place, but you can find them from Building Smart Finland. And if I quickly check from here, they are basically in Finnish, so I'll see how they are translated into English. But they're basically public and achievable. So if you Google Building Smart Finland and put YTV 2012, I think you'll find it. And the manual is in English as well.
Yeah, if I may, just for briefly, I think you can, it's in English, it's called Common BIM Requirements 2012. So with
Thanks,
that,
Lauri.
Yep.
Thank you.
Someone also asked if there is a link to the master thesis of Emma Mäkinen. Do you know, Valentin, if that's available online somewhere?
I'm not sure if it's public currently, but usually here in Finland, master theses are public, so a company can, for example, secure it for 1 year, but after that it would be found. I'm just not sure if the digital version of it is downloadable, because that's basically the owner decides if it's in the internet or just the publication in the books. But I don't have an answer to that. I can, of course, check and put also a link to the master thesis if it's available. I'm going through these different questions. There is a question: you enroll your Solibri rule set to the designers so they can model, review, and quality check themselves. Do you therefore share the licenses for Solibri? Because unfortunately, not all designers have Solibri license. Really good question from Bart. And at this current stage, we're not actually sharing our own Solibri licenses, so we expect the designer to have a Solibri license. And now that we have been implementing the rule sets, I'll say most of our key designers actually utilize Solibri themselves. So it has been easy for them to implement our own tools. Then there's a question from Mayank. Do you use BCF format for issue reporting? If yes, what do you think the advantages of that in model communication during design phase, and which software tool you use to collaborate between Solibri and other design software? We actually report in different ways. BCF format is one, and that's actually the one we prefer in ourselves because they can utilize it in their native modeling softwares as well. But some of the designers actually prefer an Excel export of the report, so we submit it that way as well. The BCF is good because you can basically update the statuses for different issues onto that one same format. It's really easy to sync between different platforms. I hope I answered your question. Then there's a question from Carl. If you receive high quality models, how much does this decrease the use of 2D documents during construction? I'll say it's site specific in our point because, well, some site managers as supervisors are digitally really mature, and actually they prefer to use the model more than floor plans, and that's why they're actually setting really high objectives for the model just because they're used to use the model on site themselves. So I'll say it's user specific, but of course from the BIM team standpoint, of course, we prefer that the model will be the essential working tool at site. Then there's a question for Hussein. For Skanska, based on which standards are the checks made? If I'm not sure if, well, basically the thing I presented is the Skanska quality check, check and how we actually view it. So it basically checks our data requirements for the model. But for example, if we look at the general modeling guide, there's its own rule set in Solibri you can utilize for that. We have just specified, actually narrowed it down to what we are actually looking for. We have utilized a lot of those generical rules ourselves in our package and just optimized them.
I can take a few questions that are, I guess, for Solibri. So there's a question how to map FI to XML to, let's say, uniformat or co-class. I'm not familiar with this FI to XML standard, but if you have, if you can create an Excel list of that, you can import it into Solibri classification, which should then automatically convert it to a uniformat or co-class. Then there's a question, for Solibri, are you working on an automated quality check for models? So we have a function called auto-run, which is, you can find more information about that in our Solibri Society and Solibri development platform. On top of the auto-run function, we have released Solibri APIs, which we are improving all the time. And so they should allow more customization, also creating more automated quality check. And one question, how did you get Solibri Solutions screen custom? Not really sure what this question means, but
we are actually starting to run out of time, but maybe if there's like a couple of questions, Valentin, you still want to take, if you have time left yourself, we can go those through, and rest we can check offline and add and share to you after the webinar. Sorry that we don't have enough time for all the questions today, but
I actually have to run myself, but I'll answer just this one question. I'll actually come back to all the questions you have submitted and provide you an answer later on, so don't worry about that. There was just a question, is Skanska Solibri extension available? And yes, it's actually public and you can find it in the Solution Center. Of course, we have actually assigned a price tag to it, which, well, maybe many of you will see that is humongous, but we give our design, the designers actually get it for free, the ones who are working on Skanska projects. We basically use a Solibri as a distribution platform.
thank you so much, Valentin, for your time and the great presentation. And yeah, sorry that we didn't have more time for questions today. There are so many of them again. We will, like said, we will go them through and get back to you. We will share the recording via email for everyone and a link where you can find replies to the questions later on. So just a couple of words about the next webinar. So we will have our next session on November 4th. If you want to mark this down in your calendar already, we're going to have a case from Brazil, case Ayoshi. Adriano Balduino and Daniel Petrin will be sharing their experiences on multidisciplinary BIM coordination and reporting with Solibri and OpenBIM. So a very interesting case from another side of the globe from our perspective here in Finland. I will also share the registration link for this webinar after the session. You will get an email after a few hours. So yeah, thank you all, and I hope to see you again next time, and have a great day.
Thank you to all participants on my behalf as well. It was glad to see there were so many of you.
thank you.
Thank you, and bye.
Bye.